Hello, everybody. My name
Powered by
is Brett
Riverside
Van Zant.
FM.
I'm the owner and lead instructor for Delmarva Emergency Training Concepts LLC. Just wanted to start this podcast out, trying something different. Currently out of work on injury right now and looking for something to do. Always wanted to get in touch with other people, talk about different things, both in the fire department, police department, basically all of public safety and emergency services. So this podcast is basically looking at that, and hopefully the plan is to get different people on here and talk about different things affecting emergency services and especially particular to the Delmarva region. For those of you that don't know what the Delmarva region is, so it's Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. Most of the people refer to that as the Eastern Shore. Uh, so all of Delaware, the Eastern Shore of Maryland, anything on the Ocean City side of the bridge, essentially, people not familiar, and then down into Virginia. Uh, so a little bit about myself. So I've been in the fire service for going on 20 years now. I have stayed in the same spot basically as a volunteer, same location anyway, and then done a few different things professionally. So as a volunteer, I belong to Churchill Volunteer Fire Company in Queen Anne's County, Maryland. I've been there my entire volunteer career, so well over 20 years. Started out as a junior member at 13, and then worked my way up. Once I turned 16, became a firefighter and worked my way through the ranks, all the way up to first assistant chief. Currently serve as a captain with the Churchill Volunteer Fire Company. Previously held positions in EMS, EMS director, which is basically our EMS chief, essentially, that's in charge. Captain and lieutenant on the EMS side, obviously, captain, lieutenant on the fire side. Also served as president for the fire company and a board of director. Professionally, I currently hold several different uh, jobs. So I'm full time a career services lieutenant with the Singerly Volunteer Fire Company, or the Singerly Fire Company in Elkton, Maryland. So I work on the career side as a shift supervisor, and then I also work part time as a EMT for the Kent Queens Rescue Squad in the next town over in Chestertown. I've been a MIFRE instructor for over 9 years now with the Maryland Fire and Rescue Institute. So it's the state training agency for the state of Maryland that is attached to the University of Maryland. So I'm a local instructor for that here in Centerville, but will travel throughout the state to teach. So I teach several different disciplines with them, both fire, rescue, hazmat, and most recently transitioned into management and the safety role. Outside of that, as you kind of heard me mention, I'm the owner and lead instructor for Delmarva Emergency Training Concepts. So it's a company I created in 2012, basically looking to do different training that wasn't thought of, training that wasn't available in this region. We don't have a lot of big names outside of uh, Maryland Fire and Rescue Institute. A lot of people stick to them. But when you need a little bit extra or something just isn't cutting it, that's either not available or not known of, uh, that was something that I was looking at doing. One of the big classes that I put out, still available, but kind of ran its course, was solar fire emergencies. So that basically came around as a need. We had a solar installer come to our local department in Churchill, give us a presentation when solar was starting to show up, and talked a little bit about it. The big thing was, as we were asking questions fire related, the solar installers really didn't have the answers. They knew solar, they knew how to install it, the safety of it, But when it comes to how the fire department interacts with it, that was really unknown. Um, Very few people in this area were willing to take the time and understand what needed to be done with solar and how we would interact with it. It was still something new. Um, so that's when I sat down with the solar installer. So we got together, kind of put our heads together, talked about it, and started breaking things down. And that's where I created the solar fire emergencies training from. We were lucky enough, as soon as it basically got created, uh, that the Eastern Shore Volunteer Firemen Association reached out and wanted me to come out to their training day. So we went down to Cambridge and did some training down there. Met a lot of folks, had a good time, and got to educate a lot of people on something they hadn't really been trained on before. We did that again for another year, and that kind of branched out to other departments that reached out and wanted more information as we went through. So that was kind of, you know, the big boom for Delmarva Emergency Training Concepts. We also do obviously the CPR and first aid training. That was something that kind of everybody was looking for, and started to offer that. Still doing that, just kind of winded down a little bit more. Uh, there's some other training agencies in the area that pick up on that. A lot of people, once they get into it, it's fairly easy to become a CPR instructor, and they jump on board with that. So I kind of let them go. I'll, you know, train people as they come to me and as they need it, but it's not something that we're really pushing out there. Uh, I like to get out and do some more training, and where I really like is to create classes and go along with that. So if there's something out there that you know you're not quite sure about, or that maybe you have questions and you're just not aware of any training, uh, we can definitely help you out. We've had several departments call us and, how does this work? How does that work? Can you help us out with this? Can you set us up with that? And we've been able to, walk them through it and kind of give them step by step guides to understand what's going on. Uh, so it's a growing process. Um, Obviously, I talked about, my fire service here. Uh, so kind of how I got started was, second generation firefighter. So my dad was a volunteer firefighter with the next town over with Churchtown Volunteer Fire Company. Still a life member, still active, running to this day. Uh, so I grew up in a firehouse. Pretty sure, you know, right after I got out of the hospital, born locally in Chestertown, pretty sure my first stop was to the firehouse before we went home. Uh, but it's one of those things of, grew up in a firehouse. It's really all I knew. I didn't know there was anything outside of that. That was just the norm. Uh, you know, Anytime there was functions going on at the firehouse, we were there. Anytime there was, major storms in the area, we were probably going to the firehouse because my dad was going to, run the fire trucks. So he got in at an early age too. He was younger and got into the fire department just, as a thing to do. It was the cool thing to do in the community, to give back to your community, things like that. And a lot of his friends were doing it, so he joined and just kind of went from there. He stepped up from the role of firefighter into a driver's role, and that's kind of where he hung out, for years to come. Now that he's getting a little bit older, he's stepped out of that driver's role, just mainly due to injuries and things like that. So he's transitioned now into fire police. I actually just found out the other day, so now he's doing that just because he doesn't want to give up the fire service just yet. He wants to keep contributing and keep doing it. It's been a love of his for years, and he passed it on to me. Uh, with myself, like I said, started at an early age. Started at 13. Basically, hung around the firehouse all my life. So as soon as I could join, I was able to. So joined right after my 13th birthday as a junior member. So big thing was, we we lived in I don't say a strange area, but uh, we live in Queen Anne's County in Chester Harbor. Uh, basically growing up till later on. So we lived in Queen Anne's County. However, it was a Chestertown address. So my dad grew up in Chestertown, so that's why he joined there and just kind of stayed local. Uh, Me, as I got older, you know, we lived in Queen Anne's County, so I kind of looked at it and said, well, you know, I'm stuck between two firehouses. I can go to Chestertown Firehouse or I can go to Churchill's Firehouse. Um, Kind of, looked at the two and made a choice and, picked the county I live in, which later turned out to be beneficial. So we'll talk about that maybe another day. But joined Churchill's Firehouse and haven't really looked back since. So joined it at 13, went through their junior member program. So that's a program for people 13 to under 16. They go through, they do all the training that they can do, a lot of hands-on, a lot of book work, going through different things, learning about the fire service, learning and preparing for firefighter one, because that's your first class you need to take to be a firefighter here, and basically preparing you for that. So once I was able to, I jumped in a firefighter one class. Luckily, we have a training center, as I mentioned, that I now work for uh, in Centerville, so the next town over, so opposite direction from Chestertown. Give or take, if you don't know the area, everything's about uh, 10, 15 minutes apart, give or take, distance wise. So in less than 20 minutes from the firehouse, we can be at the training center for the state. So we're pretty lucky. Um, Went there, took Fire One, nighttime classes. So I can't remember if it was a Monday, Wednesday, or a Tuesday, Thursday, but 2, 3 nights a week, and got that done, and got my Fire One certificate, and started getting cleared to ride the fire truck. Uh, in this area, we have a vocational technical program. So the VOTEC program, which is offered through all the high schools and offered at the training center for MIFRE. So I was in high school, signed up for it, already knew about it, couldn't wait to do it. Actually, I had to wait till my senior year because of my birth date. So you have to be 16 going into that school year. So I had to wait till my senior year. Uh, Once my senior year came up, enrolled in the VOTEC program for the fire department, and I actually took Fire One again. Um, that was the beginning of it. Um, Made a lot of friendships, going through the training. I still have friends today. One of my classmates I actually work with at Singular Fire Company. Uh, and most of them are, local fire departments around here that we work with on a daily basis when I'm volunteering. So, uh, went through that. We do still uh, firefighter one. You start out, go through, uh, switch over to hazardous materials operations, and then kind of switches gears due to the winter time and ice and everything. So we stay indoors and do well. We did do EMT basic. They've now changed it to uh, EMR or emergency medical responder. A lot of people know it as first responder. So go through that, then you start getting into other technical classes. So engine company operations, truck company operations. We did forestry one and two, so we actually had state forest service come out and do training, show us how to deal with forest fires, things like that, and actually got certifications out of it. Uh, then we go into vehicle extrication rescue and site ops, which is essentially a basic rope rescue class. So realistically, you come out of there, give or take 6 to 7 years if you were to take it, at nighttime. Most people would take them, 6 years to complete all that training. So we went to school Monday through Friday, 2 classes a day. Our classes are 90 minutes, so um, hour and a half, 2 hours, give or take, and we did that training. So uh, got a lot of training real fast, a lot of experience. So in 9 months, got that 6 years of training essentially, if you were to break it down, and really propelled me to go and do more. So once I got out of Votech, I just kept going, kept taking more training, things that were offered, the next classes that were out. Moved on to Firefighter 2, which is our kind of crew leader training, uh, and just kept going. Uh, Fire Officer 1, Fire Officer 2. Recently, past 2 years, I've taken Fire Officer 3. Started getting into some specialties, so took Hazmat Tech, Confined Space, uh, have a ropes 1 and 2, which is our high angle uh, rope rescue training. How I got that was actually challenging the test. So once I got out of high school, I started taking that training that I had and started putting it to use. So I finally obtained my EMT. I had a little bit of a bump in the road there. I actually didn't complete the VOTEC class. Uh, Thankfully, I jumped in a night class and was able to complete it in time before graduation and was able to graduate with my VOTEC class because of it. Um, Once I got my EMT certification, put that to work, and I went to work for a private ambulance company. So I went to work for Heart to Heart down in Salisbury. When I actually interviewed for them, they gave me the option, said you can go to Forest Hill, which is their headquarters, or you can go to Salisbury. You're kind of literally in between the two. Uh, I chose Salisbury. That's where I interviewed at. That's where I kind of applied at. Wasn't really aware of the headquarters until they said something. But when I looked around, just like the atmosphere of Salisbury. So worked there for a couple months doing private ambulance. Started out on a bariatric unit. Made a lot of friends, friends I still have to this day. Uh, and ironically, now one of those people that I worked with uh, has now come on board with Singular Fire Company. So, Liz, if you're listening, you know who you are. And so it's funny how you get to meet those people later on as you continue on doing things. So, uh, left there and started looking at other options. So, kind of did some odd jobs here and there. Was a security guard for a little bit, uh, lifeguard, just anything I could do that was kind of in the emergency services, public safety realm. Uh, got back into EMS, so I was lucky enough to get hired, um, thanks to some connections with my private ambulance days. I was able to get in with Caroline County. They were actually changing from EMS to Department of Emergency Services. They were joining forces with the dispatch center and emergency management. So I was there for that transition, um, but got in with them and started to get some experience outside of just volunteering, but started to get some experience professionally as a 911 EMT. So worked for Caroline County as a part-time, they called it contractual EMT, but a part-time EMT for a while, and got to meet a lot of people, make a lot of friends, get a lot of experience, and just keep going forward. Uh, Again, once I left there, kind of did some odd jobs here and there, depending on what was going on, what was available, different things in my area. Uh, Finally ended up, you know, working for a company called TechSolve. So they're out of Newcastle, Delaware, um, and started out interviewing as a whole watch and got there. A guy kind of looked at my certification, said, "Well, you've got rescue certifications. We want to put you on the rescue team." Uh, so ended up getting on their rescue team, and it's a pretty awesome experience. Never experienced anything like that before. So we were um, a paid rescue team. Essentially, we were contracted out. Got to work in a lot of oil refineries, so a lot of petrochemical industry. Uh, got to go places I'd never been before. Got to go to Lysol up in New Jersey. Um, a bunch of petrochemical facilities up and down the East Coast. Primarily, out of the Newark office, we were responsible for uh, obviously Delaware. We were, getting back into Maryland, uh, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, getting up into New York. So, there were days I was standing on a tank in North Jersey looking at the New York skyline, and there were other days where I was down in Curtis Bay in Baltimore. But basically doing standby rescue was predominantly, occasionally we did whole watch, fire watch, things like that. It was a pretty cool experience. Um, got a lot of experience with hands-on rope rescue. We set equipment up every day, set systems up, so became very proficient with that, and that kind of led into becoming an instructor. So when I was at TechSolve, I had the opportunity. We were a small company. There wasn't many people there. We had the Newark office, the Harrisburg office, and now they've grown. I think I talked to somebody the other day, and they have like 7 different offices now, and maybe even more. I'm not sure. I don't really keep up. Uh, but the big thing was they're really looking at training and being able to train our own people, but also being able to offer training to clients. So my boss at the time kind of stepped over and stepped into a training role, but I was in the office, so I ended up coming out of the field, taking on a full-time role um, as what they called the schedule coordinator. So I was scheduling jobs, making sure that people were assigned to jobs and we got them done in a timely manner. So I was in the office a lot, so he would grab me, and you know Doug was his name, and Doug would grab me, and he's like, I was always kid. He's like, hey kid, come here. Uh, I need you to do this. He's like, you're good with this. Do this. And a lot of it was technical stuff, technology. Hey, setting up, PowerPoints, you know, he was basically taking all this stuff he had written down and putting it into a presentation and creating these, training programs from scratch. So I saw that and I got to help him out with that. Um, and then he's like, I need a hand in the classroom. Can you just come hold this for me? And I'd help him out there. And I really liked it. I really liked training and things like that. I had already taken, uh, my instructor one and instructor two. Big thing was I took instructor one just to certify my uh, Forester one. So uh, we have a good relationship with ProBoard. We actually have somebody with MIFRE. His whole job is certifications. So he'll sit down, explain to you what you need to do to meet the certification level at the ProBoard level, which thankfully for us isn't much. Once we complete classes, as long as we have the proper classes, most of the time it's just submitting paperwork and a check, and here's your certificate. Occasionally you have to do some extra things or finish some checklists. Uh, but it's we're very fortunate compared to other states as I talk around to different people and understanding what they have to do and the hurdles they have to go through. So I took instructor one just to pro board certify my Forester one, but then I started liking it. And he brought that up. He goes, well, you've got your instructor one, like you can help me teach. So I helped him in the classroom, helped him, we ended up building a training prop um, that we could utilize to, simulate different rescues that we may be put into. And that's kind of where my love of training took off from. So later left there, um, again, picked up some odd jobs here and there, and ended up working as a basically what ended up being a campus police officer, but at the time was just a public safety officer for Washington College. It's a local liberal arts college here in the area in Chestertown, actually. So, uh, how I ended up there, ironically, I talked about my dad. Well, he, you know, retired from the fire marshal's office, medical retirement. We can talk about that later. Maybe I'll have him on here one day to kind of tell his story because it's a unique story. But he was working for Washington College off and on, kind of all my life. He would go there in between jobs, pick up some part-time work. But he was working there full time, and he said, "Hey, we've got an opening. Are you interested?" So I put in, got in, and liked it. Basically, serving the community, doing what we needed to do. So, like I said, we started out as public safety, which is essentially just security guards. Over time, that department, kind of changed as the time changed, and they gave us the opportunity to get our special police commission, which we get through the Maryland State Police. So essentially, we could do everything a police officer could do. The only thing we couldn't do is perform traffic stops. Kind of strange concept. You have to go to academy for that in the state of Maryland, uh, but I can lock you up and take away your rights. And again, that's a conversation for a whole nother day. But Uh, did that for, you know, over 7 years. Started out event staff while working other jobs. Like I said, went part time, got offered full time, and did that for a couple years, and it was enjoyable. Big thing I really didn't like was the change in the climate, just with everything going on. That was, during all the defund the police movements and things like that. We were really looked at a lot by the student body, um, and just didn't like where it was at. So I kind of started talking. Um, I'm remarried now, but divorced. I started talking to my then wife, which is now my ex-wife, and just said, look, I really don't like where I'm at. I want to do something different. I was working for MIFRE at the time. I was working, you know, part time as an EMT, not for the rescue squad, but actually for Goodwill Fire Company in Centerville. And you know, said, I think, I've got enough part-time work. I can make this work between, my business, working for MIFRE, working for, Goodwill as an EMT. I can juggle my schedule and make this work. Big thing was I wanted to go into teaching. I wanted to teach more. Um, so, I said I'm going to pick up more with special programs, which is actually a division in MIFRE, where we do training for businesses or state level agencies, but basically it's for hire. So we're not so much focusing on the fire service, the volunteer and career fire service. We're focusing on businesses and organizations. Got a lot of opportunities with that. So I made my decision. Ironically, this was started talking about it January of 2020. Uh, and everybody knows what happened in 2020. So February, I made the decision. I said, look, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave the college. I'm going to start teaching, basically full-time hours as much as I can. I'll fill in with being a part-time EMT, fill in with my business with Delmarva Emergency, and that's the route I'm going to go. And put in my 2 weeks at the end of February, March 1st. I said I was done. Left Washington College, and all of a sudden, COVID happened. So uh, MIFRE all but shut down. Didn't know what to do until everything kind of was figured out. Uh, so I was basically on an ambulance throughout COVID. Um, saw an opening come up. I believe it was April, March or April. Yeah, I think it was late March. Um, saw opening come up for Singular Fire Company. They were hiring, part-time EMTs. Kent County EMS, local EMS department, actually neighboring county was hiring. I put in for both. Ironically, started the same day. My start date's the same, didn't quite start the same day, but on paper, I started the same day with both agencies. Started as a part-time EMT with Ken EMS, started as a part-time EMT with Singular Fire Company, and kind of went from there. Uh, I kind of told myself I'm going to see what happens, what comes about, and still working for MIFRE, picking up some jobs as, things came along. It was still a little rocky in the beginning with COVID, a lot of restrictions. Some organizations really didn't want to, bring people in, so we weren't doing a lot of training that we'd normally be doing, but that kind of phased out. Um, but yeah, started working for them and kept on going. Uh, that kind of changed. Ken EMS was just kind of there. I was actually a COVID EMT is what they labeled it. So I was contractual till the end of the year. Uh, Singular Fire Company, I was, part-time EMT. So it wasn't long. Uh, my boss came to me, said, "Hey, look, you've got fire training. We want to put you on the fire truck, so we're gonna, promote you. You're gonna be a part-time EMT firefighter, and we'll go from there." That was 2 months into working there. 2 months, not even 2 months later, maybe 30 days later, came to me, said, "Hey, we're adding additional staffing." So currently, it was two full-time personnel. So uh, an EMT or a paramedic, preferably a paramedic, and a FADO, so a fire apparatus driver operator, so somebody that was responsible for driving the fire trucks. Uh, they were on shift, and then a part-time person and they were adding this third person on. So I got the opportunity to be that third person, took that uh, opportunity, and then it kind of went from there. And within about 9 months of being full time, uh, they came to me again and said, "Hey, look, we know you have a lot of training. You already have your fire officer certifications." So at the time, I had fire officer two. They said, you know, we want to offer you a lieutenant's position if you're interested. It's day shift. So at the time, our lieutenants worked uh, 2 days on, 2 days off, 7A to 7P. So they were there for 12 hours after 7 p.m., essentially no supervision. Um, so they offered that to me. I said, yeah, what's the chance of this becoming a 24 or 72 shift? Because that's what the full timers work. That's the shift I was coming off of. They said, oh, it'll happen in the next year, but not right now. So took the promotion, so became a shift lieutenant, and that's been going on 5 years now. Um, it was maybe another year of doing that, and they changed that to a 24-hour lieutenant. So I then changed back to 24/72 schedule, which is what we work now. Best schedule, I think. Uh, you work the least amount of time for the most time off, and brought on some more lieutenants because currently it was myself and just one other guy who's now left. He wasn't from the area. He went back to his original area to be a firefighter back up there. So, now we have four lieutenants. We have a captain. Now we've continued to grow staff there. So um, we now have a total of six full-time personnel on each shift, including a lieutenant. So a lieutenant, a FADO, and then a mix of uh, EMS only, firefighter EMTs, firefighter paramedics, and then we have part-time personnel as well. So uh, just a different situation, different area. So um, anybody that's not familiar with Elkton, it's very busy. So um, you're smack dab in the middle of, you can be to Philadelphia just as quick as you can be to Baltimore, right off 95, right on 40. So we've got two major corridors that come through. So obviously everybody knows what goes on with that. Um, but the biggest dynamic is it's the only um, volunteer fire department in Cecil County that pays both EMS and fire staffing. Most of them pay EMS staffing. Uh, they're the only ones that provide EMS and fire staffing paid. There's also volunteers, so we are a combination system. So there's those nuances with that, but it's a great department, and we continue to grow. Like I said, when I started, it was three people on a shift, and now we're up to six full timers and a part timer. We've got administrative staffing, so we have, like I said, we have a captain who works 4 days a week during the day. We have a full time mechanic that was added on since I've been there because we were having so many issues with, bringing somebody in to work on stuff. We actually, got the same guy that was working on the equipment for a another company. We were able to bring him on board directly, so now he works for Single Elite Fire Company and he maintains our equipment. Um, and then we even have a bookkeeper who's in part time, and then an administrator who handles a lot of paperwork. Her role is kind of changing, so she's doing a lot of community engagement, community outreach, a lot of um, political and government work, things like that, grant writing. So her job seems to evolve every day. Uh, but yeah, so that's kind of, where I'm at and how I got to where I am today. Uh, big thing is uh, a lot of things have changed how I do things. A lot of things have changed. I've had some opportunities, good and bad, throughout the years. I kind of think, where I'm at today is because of things that I've done in my past, both good and bad. Uh, I've had some missed opportunities. So, uh, had the opportunity to work for Salisbury Fire Department over 10 years ago now. I'm going to say almost 12. Well, yeah, it'll be 12 years. Um, you know, interviewed with them, tested out, everything was good, got the phone call, hey, want to hire you, but you got a lot of points on your driving record. We can't really do anything, so we got to hold off till all those clear off. Um, so that was kind of, a mistake of mine. I was young and dumb and, you know, just got a lot of traffic tickets for speeding, things like that. Points piled up on my driving record. Didn't really think it mattered at the time. Didn't really think there was any kind of consequences like that. But it did. Ended up, actually ended up losing my license for, you know, uh, I think 3 months. I had to serve a 3 month suspension. Uh, and that, cost me a lot of jobs. Cost me the opportunity with Salisbury Fire Department. I could have been halfway to retirement with them. Cost me my job at Caroline County. So a lot of people don't realize that, but that was, the reason why I, no longer work there because that was a violation of my contract. So, um, and like I said, I don't blame anybody for it but myself, but it put me in different positions, put me, in different places that I didn't think I would be. Had an opportunity to go with, Frederick County, which is now a large grown system. They were very small at the time. Had a part-time opportunity, turned it down. I was like, I'm not going to drive to Frederick for, part-time work. This doesn't make any sense. It's about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes from my house to, you know, the city of Frederick, essentially. Um, and just didn't see the point there. Again, regret that one. Frederick's a big department. Um, people are in higher up positions now that started out with them, 10 plus years ago. So who knows? Who knows where I could be with that. So, uh, but it is what it is. Uh, Big thing is, just take it in strides and keep moving. Um, like I said, got a great career now, got a great family now. Like I said, got a divorce back in 2021 through 2022. Uh, Ended up, meeting my now wife later on in life. Uh, Fun fact, we actually met on Bumble, so the Bumble app. It worked out for both of us, and we're happy and got married and living the good life. So she, she's not always around now. She's, following her dreams, and she works as a travel nurse as an RN for a hospital. So uh, I won't get too much into her details. Maybe she'll come on here and talk about it one day, but I'll let her kind of tell that story. But um, she spends time uh, at her work location, then comes home. That's where she's at actually working tonight. And then she'll be home this weekend for a couple days and we'll get to spend some time together. So can't complain. Got a good life going on and got everything that I'm looking for. So big thing is, like I said, with this podcast, just trying to get out there and talk about different things that affect emergency services. Both, like I said, both fire and law enforcement. Um, my dad started out in the fire service. Later, he got hired by the state fire marshal's office in Maryland. So that's the lead or the state fire investigation service. So started out there doing fire investigations. Uh, Tried a little bit with the bomb squad and then ended up moving over to Accelerant K9. So he had a dog for a while and then later got injured. So he went out on a medical retirement and luckily got to keep his dog. She ended up passing a couple years ago. Uh, but, he was in that law enforcement realm for a while. So, he kind of had the best of both worlds. He was a cop that went to fires. So, uh, kind of have that background. I have an uncle who was in law enforcement for many years with different departments. So, uh, my family dynamic is a little different than some, with the law enforcement background, the fire background. So, very supportive of, the fire service and law enforcement as well. Um, Obviously, working in the fire department, anybody that knows that knows you interact with law enforcement a lot. So, don't be surprised, if maybe we'll try and get some cops on here to talk about different things and you know, issues that affect them that also affect the fire service because we do work together on a regular basis. Um, it's kind of like that sibling rivalry. So while we always can't stand each other, we'll go to bat for each other against somebody else outside the family. So the public starts attacking one, we stand up for them just like if it was our brother or sister. Um, but when it comes down to it, there's days we want to wring each other's necks. So it is what it is. But like I said, my plan here is to get some different people in here that I've encountered throughout my career and throughout my life and different things that I do, and talk about those issues and talk about different things that we encounter throughout our either volunteer or career. I think they're both very important. There's people that have done nothing but volunteered all their life, and they have incredible stories to tell just as much as people that have only been a career and never volunteered once. Uh, but you always see those same, characteristics come out. So uh, that's a big thing is, just getting on here and talking about different things and putting things out there. Um, if you're listening to this, I'm going to try and send this out. And, if you know me, great. Shout out. If you think there's something we need to talk about or there's somebody that I should talk to, let me know. I'll reach out to them and see if we can get them on here. Um, hoping to grow this podcast, more than just a few people listening, but if that's all it is, that's all it is. And I'll keep doing my thing and hopefully you guys enjoy it. But that's the big thing is just trying something new, trying to get out there and trying to talk to people, that see things the way that we do and maybe that see things a little different and get their different point of view. So uh, hopefully you've enjoyed this podcast. I've now kind of rambled on for over 40 minutes, just kind of telling my story. Like I said, we'll dabble in it a little bit more as things comes up. But there's more you want to know, let me know, and I can go into more detail. I try not to talk too much. I feel like if I talk a lot, people get bored and don't want to listen. So not everybody wants to hear my story. So we'll uh, we'll leave it at that. But I'm going to sign off of here and hopefully we'll keep this going. And this is episode 1. So hope there's a episode 2, 3, 4, and more. So, all right. Have a good day.